Hey everyone, Kevin here. Today I'm coming to you with information about a new bill that was introduced in Congress late on Friday. It's called the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act of 2020. Now, just to be clear, this is different from the stimulus bills that have already passed, like us getting $1,200 checks. That was part of the stimulus bill that was passed on March 27th. Right now, we're debating in Congress an interim bill to increase funding for the Paycheck Protection Program. That's also a different bill. This is also different from the other bill, which has almost twice as many co-sponsors as this one, that would pay us $2,000 per month. That is, every adult 16 or older would get $2,000 per month. That's in the House of Representatives, and hey, we'll see where that bill goes. This is another such bill in the House of Representatives. It has not been passed yet. It just got introduced on Friday. But I want to break it down and I want to compare this to the bill that would pay everyone $2,000 per month. I've read every single word in this bill like 3 times because, as you know, with bills, they're worded in really funky ways, and my goal here is just to give you a complete summary of what this bill says, and then of course I'll comment on some parts of it as well. So here we go. This was introduced into the House again on Friday the 17th. Today's 4/20. Happy 4/20. This proposed bill starts off, and again, it's a proposed bill. It has to pass the House, then the Senate, then the President has to sign it. So this is not law yet. But the proposed bill says that tenants' obligation to pay rent shall be suspended immediately and might even be retroactive back to March 13th. So if you paid rent, you might be able to get refunded for that. And you would not be obliged to pay rent between when this bill passes all the way until the national government, FEMA, removes the national emergency declaration, which we were declared to be in a national emergency, this pandemic, as of March 13th. So from March 13th to whenever this ends, no rent is obligated to be paid. If you don't pay, you can't be fined, you can't be evicted for not paying, and you're not allowed to accrue debt, aka a landlord can't say, all right, fine, you can't pay now, but pay me later. That would be like accruing debt or a future liability. Nope, it's just straight up, no rent due. And there's no repayment necessary. Landlords are also required not to report the tenants to any kind of credit bureaus. Then we move on to, because obviously, tenants are benefiting here. What about the owners? Well, then we move on to mortgage suspension. The mortgage suspension section reads very similarly to the rent suspension, and it says during the same period, no debt shall be accrued. This isn't like forbearance where you have to repay the money in the future, the money that you're supposed to pay. You would just stop paying. Now, it's not clear if that would include insurance and property tax payments. I'm assuming not. It just simply says no mortgage payments, which is generally going to be no principal and interest. And of course, no fees, no penalties, no extra interest. They say here that there should be no reporting to the credit bureaus for you not making your payments in accordance with this mortgage suspension. However, they actually use a very interesting wording here. They say, nor shall it adversely affect credit scores. That is, if you don't make your mortgage payments, there should be no negative impact to your credit score. That's really different, which is actually a good thing, because what we have right now with this whole mortgage forbearance, like the actual mortgage forbearance that was passed, what we have in that is, okay, cool, I'll apply for mortgage forbearance. Well, then lenders aren't saying you're late, but they're changing or putting little notes in your credit portfolio that says, all right, your account is now in forbearance, and people's credit scores are tanking for going into forbearance, which is totally the opposite of what should be happening. That's not the point of saying your credit shouldn't be affected. So this wording is actually better, so that's good. Now, if anybody violates, like making a tenant pay rent, or a lender makes somebody pay their mortgage, they would get fined $5,000 for the first violation, $10,000 for the second violation, and then they would, if they kept going, they would be fined potentially $50,000, or they would just lose the property. The property would become subject to forfeiture. This is so far a pretty extreme bill. Like, I have to say, I'm not super jazzed about this so far. Like, I get it, no rent, no mortgage, cool, like I got that. But some of the clauses here start getting a little bit like, really extreme. And it kind of makes me think like, well, what about landlords who don't have a mortgage? They get screwed out of the rent, but they went debt-free and they don't get any help this way. This is where I'm kind of thinking, I don't know about this bill. Like the bill where you get $2,000 a month, every adult just gets $2,000 per month until this panic is over. That seems to make a lot more sense. Let's just keep all the gears sort of moving and keep moving the economy like it should by giving people sort of a temporary universal basic income. Now, let's keep moving on here with landlords, because they do have a section here for landlords, and this is where it gets pretty interesting. Landlords get shafted with this bill. And you might not know this about me, but I'm a 28-year-old realtor. I have a portfolio of over $8 million of real estate investments that I started with $18,000 when I was 19 years old. And I grew it over the last few years. I've been documenting a lot of my journey and showing you how I do it. I also talk about that in my programs link below, but this is bad from a real estate broker and investor point of view, okay? Watch this. All right, so here are the provisions in this bill for landlords. And look, even if you're not a landlord and you're like, hey, F landlords, Kevin, you're a landlord, screw you. I'll get my 2 free stocks with Webull in the link down below, and I'm out of here. I ain't subscribing to your channel. Which, by the way, somebody in my private live streams this morning, every day at 9 a.m., they got $147 stock by using the Webull link. So congratulations to them. And they're my courses, so really good congratulations to them. Maybe that increases your odds. It doesn't. I don't want to mislead you. But okay, let's talk about this landlord thing because it's bad. All right, so we know that mortgages are canceled, and we know that rents are canceled, but a lot of people who own rentals have generally cash flow, and they can use that cash flow to pay for a property manager or maintain a property and fix up a property. That's good, but if you don't have rent coming in, you might not have the money to be able to maintain the property. So housing and urban development is supposed to establish a fund. And landlords would be required to sign binding agreements with housing and urban development to be able to take money from this fund. But in order to take money from the fund to help them through this, you have to agree to the following terms for 5 years, starting the time you take your first payment. The terms are: you're not allowed to increase rent on any of your units for 5 years. So straight up rent freeze for 5 years. You can only evict for just cause, which basically means if you didn't like a tenant, you couldn't get them out. They'd actually have to break the contract, which, okay, that's not so horrible. The rent freeze thing is a little bit of a problem, especially in areas that already have pretty strict rent control. I mean, this is straight up 0 rent increase. I mean, that's basically like rent decreases because of inflation. Then anytime a unit goes vacant, a landlord's supposed to coordinate with public housing units as soon as a tenant leaves to make sure that Section 8 tenants are fully capable of renting these units, and you need to immediately notify local housing authorities that you have a vacant unit. You cannot restrict tenancy based on credit history or arrest record. That's insane. I see some jurisdictions doing, you can't, say no to a tenant because of criminal records. Like, fine, I get that. But credit history, wow, like we would have to come up with our own way of determining somebody's actual financial ability to repay without using credit, which is okay. We talk about that in my property management course, but wow, that's a big one. You would not be allowed to collect back rent. You would not be allowed to report tenants to debt collectors. And here's the kiss of death for a lot of landlords. It says in order for you to qualify to get any kind of assistance from this fund, realize you're going to be put into a tiered system where you will have to disclose all of your assets, all of your revenues, disclose everything about your financial portfolio. And then the landlords who actually need help the most, they're the ones who are going to get helped first. So if you've built your net worth with real estate and you have a substantial net worth now, or you're growing your net worth, you're gonna get shafted compared to maybe a newer landlord. Okay, I mean, I somewhat get that, but this is a lot of conditions here. I mean, basically what's gonna happen is people, if rents and mortgages get canceled, people stop paying their rent, people stop paying their mortgages, and landlords are gonna have to be stuck paying property taxes, insurance, maintenance, management, utilities, reserves, all of that themselves, because some of these restrictions are ridiculous. Then they're going to have a similar fund for lenders, but I won't go into that because most of us watching this aren't like mortgage servicers. Then this is whoosh, mind-blowing, okay? Get this. Like, maybe you don't like landlords and you're like, I don't care about y'all landlords, whatever. Fine. But listen to this. Affordable Housing Acquisition Fund. There will be a fund established that allows basically the government to buy multifamily housing projects to prevent mass exits of landlords. I mean, that's a little dire. I don't think landlords are exiting real estate en masse here. Maybe, certain syndicators are because they suck and they're full of debt. So, okay, I get this. It creates like a safety net. So maybe like multifamily prices don't plummet. Okay, I could see that. But then it says, you may not sell a multifamily building during the following 5 years after being part of this program unless you notify the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development and you give them an exclusive 60-day right to buy your property before the open market does. And them also includes nonprofits, any kind of public housing, any kind of cooperative housing association, any kind of community land trust, the government, or anybody using some sort of purchase assistance. And then if one of those entities purchases a building in that 60-day right of first refusal, those units, those rentals, immediately get turned into affordable housing units. So now, not only does it potentially dramatically restrict your sales price if you were to sell a building for 5 years, which is crazy. It's not during the period, it's for a full 5 years afterwards. But you're also now turning buildings that are normal units into potentially affordable units. Wow! This is a very intense bill, especially with the retroactive collection of basically rent that you paid. In other words, if you paid rent for April, like you might be able to request getting that back. Wow. So I don't know about you, but I personally think we would rather see the Emergency Money for the People's Act pass. I made a video here that you can look at and kind of see a breakdown of that bill, which is in the House. That gives everybody $2,000 per month. Anybody 16 years or older as of January 1st, 2020. Couples would get up to $4,000 plus $500 for 1 or 2 children and potentially up to $1,500 if you have 3 or more children. So, and that's monthly until this ends in 6-month buckets. That just seems to be so simple. And when you look at the bill, this bill is like 3 times as long as the Emergency Money for the People's Act. It's weird. It establishes insane bureaucracy. Like, why? This to me is dumb. It's so bureaucratic. It's so messy. Why not just, here's universal basic income, basically, for the short term. I'm not trying to be political here, okay? I'm not trying to do left, right, or center. I don't care. Just saying, if we're gonna do another stimulus, here's money until the panic's over, okay? It doesn't even have to be a full 6 months. Gosh, cut it down to 3 months. I don't care. Just while people aren't able to work, give them money so that way they can keep paying their car, their house, their mortgages. Landlords can keep maintaining buildings and everything's good. The economy gets paused for a few months. Everybody gets just enough money coming in, hopefully, to pay our minimum bills. And we go back to normal after this is all over. I don't know, to me it doesn't have to be this complicated. But I do want to hear your thoughts, so let me know in the comments down below. Let me know which 2 free stocks you got with Webull. When you sign up for Webull, you deposit $100, you get 2 free stocks valued up to $1,400. And of course, get life insurance. Use that link down below so you can get life insurance on your phone within 5 minutes. You could Apple Pay for it. I've got it, my wife has it, it's awesome. And of course, join me in the programs linked below so you can meet me every day at 9 a.m. that the market is open and I can help you with anything you have questions with, whether it's real estate, property management, renovations, credit, debt, stocks, you name it. Thanks so much, and until next time.